Ladies, gents, and students of all ages, I'd like to introduce and welcome Mr. Scott Halgren. Mr. Halgren served 4 years in one of the most honorable branches of the United States military, the U.S. Air Force. Upon the completion of his 4th year with the Air Force, Scott Halgren began his educational career at the University of Phoenix and then continued at De Anza Community College in Cupertino, California. His current education status spans between San Jose State and De Anza College. While taking quarter units at De Anza, he took a class led by Dr. Mark Coronado, who is the director of the LEAD Foundation, Latino Empowerment at De Anza. During the period of time that he spent in Dr. Coronado's class, he was informed of the individuals living in the Terra Alta community in Watsonville, California, and decided to take action and touch each individual's life with motivation, inspiration, support, and teach life essentials that could potentially change lives. Now I'd like to share more of Mr. Scott Halgren's positive influence with all of you. This is his story.
My name's Scott Halgren.
So was it sort of like the same thing that we're doing right now where we went out to Watsonville and we're doing that kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, so what happened was that, when I first got to her class, like I said, I was already kind of focused on, finding a career to help other people. But as far as, farm workers go and a lot of those, even when it comes to like immigration or immigrants, I didn't really have a lot of experience. All I had really known was kind of the negative stuff I had heard. So when I first came in, I had a lot of like negative opinions, but kind of through that process of Mark's class, I found out that I was wrong on a lot of things. And then doing the farm worker reality tour, meeting people face to face, and then identifying that this is really, there's something really going on here, something really wrong. And then the difference came in where I went and talked to Mark and said, I recognize something's going on here and I want to do something about it. And she was kind of the person who actually sat down with me and said, and listened to what I had to say, listened to some of my ideas, and then believed in me enough to help me get involved. And then the next quarter, her class was getting involved with the migrant education program. So she kind of asked me to be like the campus liaison. I'd be the person who kind of was the go-between between the migrant education program and the students. And so we were supposed to go out to some of the camps and bring donations and talk to them about school. So that was sort of my early exposure. Touch, which just for the record stands for Tutor Outreach Uniting Communities for Change, basically started in the winter quarter. Another instructor, Cynthia Kaufman, asked me to do the same thing with her class that we did with Mark's class, and that's at the point where I thought, I want to do this, but I want to do it the right way. And so that's when we kind of teamed up with Mark and teamed up with Dr. Ann and sort of like figured out a new way to sort of focus on education as a source of empowerment, but it just took on a name. It originally started out as Tutor Outreach for Underserved Children, because we planned on focusing on children, but then we expanded out and started working with adults, and so really what we're doing here is bringing communities together. So, but yeah, it's sort of, it's just right now, it's just me, and then working with LEAD students and so it's in that way it is an organization, but my future goals, especially this summer, is to really push to get it incorporated as a nonprofit, and sort of legitimize it a little bit more.
Why do you think this kind of work is important?
As far as social justice in general, or working with farm workers specifically, or
working with farm workers.
I just think it's a really, I don't know, it's really tough to put it into words, but the situation is, it's just very deep injustice that's happening, for people that provide our food for us, people that are the backbone of our economy and are really just being pushed to the side, being treated extremely unfairly. The fact that we're treating fellow human beings as if they don't matter, and marginalizing them, it's just not okay. I think that focusing specifically on education, providing educational resources for farm workers is extremely important because, they're of people that are just being treated so unfairly. And by providing education, we're not a charity service. We're giving them the power, empowering them to stand up for themselves and speak out for themselves. It's sort of we don't just sort of kind of change their own, change their own future, and it's kind of, there's just so, the thing is that it's so there's so many reasons. It's really kind of hard to put it into words, but I think it's each of our duty as a human being to look out for each other, and I think that you have to start where's the most need, and I can't think of a group of people that are being treated worse than migrant farm workers, and especially people underestimate their contribution, and they, like I said, they're the backbone of our economy. They provide the food that we eat. I mean, and beyond all that, all the economics and all that kind of stuff, I mean, like I said, it's kind of our imperative as human beings to look out for each other. We can't just see something like this happening and then do nothing about it. It's just not, it goes against human nature.
Right. So, how do you think this fights against xenophobia and racism? Because it kind of ties into, like, that's kind of the evil side of what you're talking about,
Right.
Like, we have to look out for each other, but there's also that other part where people, like migrant farm workers are afraid of, so, like, how the situation's going in Arizona and all that, right? People are like, we don't want them taking our jobs and all that. So how do you think this kind of ties in, how does it fight, like, xenophobia and the whole overall view of racism?
Well, I think what's great about what we're doing here is that if you look at what happened to me as an example, I came in with a lot of those fears, and a lot of the feelings that I had were based on fears. It was based on, people telling me that, our security's at risk, people saying that our jobs are at risk, that people, kind of have this image of people coming across the border as these criminals, and so by actually, you can sit in a classroom all day long and hear about these things, but until you actually go out and meet people face to face and sit down with them, get to know them, learn their names, that's when you really realize that, these are just human beings. These are human beings just like me. These are people who care about their families, who are just trying to do what they have to do to survive. I think that, xenophobia and racism and all those things are really based on fear of the unknown. We fear things we don't know, and then for comfort, we look to whatever sources of information we can, and unfortunately the sources that around us are misinforming us. The media, and people try to kind of push their own political agenda, really kind of tap into that fear, and sort of and make it a lot worse.
So pertaining to your work, what are your hopes for the future?
For this organization, like I said before, I'd really like to make it more official and turn it into a nonprofit and expand it. But in general, I'd like to see more organizations like this start. I'd like to see people kind of, like just empowerment among people, coming together and sort of kind of, forming these coalitions of organizations that, provide services and stuff like that. But, in general, I would just like to see just, a strengthening of the community, the farm worker community, and hopefully, I can play a part in that.
How about maybe like 10 years from now, hopefully?
Well, 10 years from now, that hopefully, I will have graduated by then, and I'd like to be doing something like this as a career, and so, for myself personally, I like to be doing this, and I'd like to see, like, this organization grow. But, in 10 years from now, I would also like to see, my big thing is just to see, like, a strengthening of the groups that are already around, coming together, communicating, sort of this, like, kind of powerful network of people pushing back against, the oppression and everything that's happening, in the farm worker community.